Hey there, interwebs, and welcome back to Flagshaming, the series where I show you flags with bad or questionable designs, then offer my suggestions for how to improve them. Last week, I had a good cathartic rant about how the Philadelphian POC and Progress pride flags are design disasters, but I also made a promise to examine other LGBT pride flags, and for the rest of this month I'll be making good on it. This is your generic rainbow flag, and these are the pride flags for many of its sub-communities. You've got gay, lesbian, bi, non-bi, trans, pans, polyamory, polysexual, demisexual, intersex, asexual, aromantic, agender, gender fluid, and gender queer. Rule number 3 of flag design is use only 2 or 3 basic colors. Some of these designs do, but others don't, but the real issue involves rules 2 and 5. Rule 2 says to use meaningful symbolism, but only the polyamory, intersex, and arguably demisexual pride flags use non-color-based symbolism. Rule number 5 is be distinct or be related, and to their credit, these designs are all pretty clearly related. With the obvious exception of the intersex design, they're all horizontal stripes like the rainbow flag. The issue I have with them is that these unadorned stripes all look kind of indistinct and interchangeable. Without a central icon, these flags could represent anything, and just to prove my point, this one isn't even a pride flag, it's the national flag of Estonia. Shame on the whole set. One of the hallmarks of a good flag design is that it's recognizable, even in grayscale. With these flags, good luck. If you belong to a community represented by one of them, you've got 2 options: start hunting for a new symbol, or learn your barcode. Since neither of those 2 options sounds particularly appealing, and part of this whole series is to make improvements, I decided to redesign them, but to preserve the somewhat limited family resemblance, I set forth for myself 3 commandments. 1. Every flag must have a field of horizontal stripes in reference to the original rainbow pride flag. 2. Every flag must also have a distinct and recognizable central symbol. Horizontal stripes alone do not a good flag make. Sorry, most of Europe. 3. The designs will use a unified color palette. The 6 primary and secondary colors come from the 6-stripe rainbow flag, and the pink comes from Gilbert Baker's original design. Any and all uses of gray must also be the same shade as well. Let's take a look at my redesigns and see how well this project turned out, shall we? The first sexual orientation-specific pride flag I took a crack at redesigning was the one for the bisexual community, and not just because I have a vested personal interest in this one. Although they aren't nearly as common as flags with 3 stripes, there are some with only 2 stripes, such as the flags of Poland, Saxony, and Ukraine, and in the vexillological community this type of flag is known as a bicolor. This is why it has bothered me for years that the bisexual pride flag has 3 colors. If it only had 2, we could have had a bi-pride bicolor. Come on, people, the opportunity was right there with its trousers down. Shame! The obvious remedy to this oversight is simply to remove the thin purple stripe in the middle, but it pains me to say that because not only is purple the most bisexual color, being the unofficial color of but not too gay, it's also personally my favorite color. Additionally, a flag with just 1 pink stripe and 1 blue stripe would be fairly boring and indistinct, but happily I have a solution to this problem. What I did is known in heraldic terms as counterchanging, and among flag geeks as pulling a Greenland. The pair of crescent moons is a slightly less well-known symbol of the bisexual community, and I adjusted the ratio and changed the pink and blue to match the rainbow flags to follow my 3rd commandment. Next up is the flag for pansexuals, or as I like to call them, pansies. And before you accuse me of being disparaging of the community, I'll have you know that the first girl I dated who identified as pansexual loved the nickname. It's like calling asexuals ace, but more on that next week. Also, despite the name being a synonym for a weakling or coward, pansies are a remarkably hardy flower. And when I mentioned this fact to an ROTC friend of mine for whom pansy was his favorite insult, I was told to stop being a smartass. But yeah, I like to call pansexual people pansies, and that's why for my redesign of their flag, I changed the yellow central stripe to a stylized yellow pansy instead. I also initially decided to use the same shades of pink and blue which are on the bisexual flag, because the 2 sexualities are so closely related. If you ask 10 different people what the difference is between bisexual and pansexual, you'll get 12 different answers. Yes, that is more answers than people. Some of us can't pick just one. I should also mention now that my 3rd commandment was a late addition. I only thought to include it after I noticed that certain related pride flags all use slightly different shades of gray, which bothers me more than it probably should. So obviously the last change I made was another palette swap, this time using my predetermined hues of pink, blue, and yellow. Next under the multisexual umbrella is polysexual. This term is, apparently, for people who are attracted to multiple sexualities, but not all, which is what separates them from pansies. This is their current flag as created by Tumblr user Samlin, with the intention to be similar to the bi and pan flags with a stripe of pink on top and blue on the bottom. Before you ask, no, I have no idea why green was chosen for the middle stripe. Before I reveal my redesign for the polysexual flag, I want to show you another poly pride flag. This one stands for a community rather than a specific sexuality, and represents polyamory. Right off the bat, I'd like to praise it for using a symbol in addition to its horizontal stripes. It has a yellow or golden letter pi, the Greek equivalent of our letter P, and this stands for poly, which is the Greek prefix meaning many. See for example polygon, which means many-angled, or polydactyl, which means many fingers. I've also seen it claimed that pi was used because the mathematical constant of the same name is irrational and unending, just like love. This smells like justification after the fact to me, but it's still a cute little story. Whatever the actual reason, I decided to use this symbol on my Polysexual pride flag redesign, since it too starts with poly, and love is love, and therefore irrational. At this point I just used the same bicolor field as my bi and pan pride flags, then changed the palette and called it a job well done. As for redesigning the polyamorous pride flag, I really didn't have to do much. Besides the necessary color adjustment, the only major change I made was embiggening the letter pi to make it more identifiable at a distance. At first, those were the only changes I made. After redesigning the rest of the pride flags, however, I noticed that this was the only one to have red or black stripes, which made it visually incongruous with the rest of the set. As a matter of fact, if you don't count the general rainbow flag, this design was the only one to have any red at all. Curious as to what each color was meant to represent, I did some digging and eventually managed to find an explanation on the blog of the original designer, Jim Evans. According to him, the blue represents openness and communication, the red represents passion, and the black represents solidarity with people who must keep their alternative lifestyle hidden. Those are three fine things, but there's no reason the latter two have to be represented by red and black, so I made some tweaks. First, I changed the red to pink, since pink technically is just a shade of red, and I believe it represents passion equally well. I next changed the black to purple for two reasons. On the ace and demisexual flags, purple is used to represent community, and community and solidarity go hand in hand. Additionally, purple is usually the darkest color of the main six. I also swapped the position of the pink and purple stripes, initially just because the gold pi would stand out better against purple, since the two are complementary colors, but then I noticed that it also turns the field into a pleasant tricolor gradient moving from masculine blue to feminine pink with androgynous purple in between. Now each color symbolizes its own concept, and the three combine to symbolize the greater gender spectrum, plus it just looks better, in my opinion. And now we have the flag for lesbians. This is currently the most popular stripy pride flag for the Sapphic community, but it is by no means the only striped lesbian flag. As a matter of fact, it's actually the fourth iteration, at least, in a line of lesbian pride flags stretching back to the start of the last decade. This 5-striped version is a simplification of the 7-striped version, which began to circulate on Tumblr and other social media sites in 2018. Please remember that Ted K's third rule of flag design is limit yourself to 2 or 3 basic colors. Of course, the 6-color rainbow flag is the design I always bring out as an example of how to break this rule well, since it uses all of those colors in combination as meaningful symbolism, and every area of color is large and easily distinguished. With the 5-color lesbian flag, the stripes of red, orange, white, pink, and purple are easily distinguished. With the 7-color version, not so much. Seriously, no flag needs 2 different shades of orange. That being said, it was a slight improvement over its predecessor, which had all of its stripes in shades of red and magenta. Shame on both! This design is generally known as the pink flag, no points for guessing why, but its design is a derivation, or rather a simplification, of this design introduced in 2010, known as the lipstick lesbian flag. Again, no points for guessing why. Honestly, between the 4, I consider the first and most recent designs to be the 2 best, but that's just my personal opinion. I appreciate the new, simplified design's more restrained use of color, but the kiss mark and the canton of the early flag is a recognizable symbol, something which the new design regrettably lacks, making it more difficult to identify. I'd say it's a toss-up between the old and the new designs, but there's actually one other lesbian pride flag design I haven't mentioned yet. Interestingly, it's more than twice as old as the earliest of the new designs, first created all the way back in 1999, but I still consider it to be the best one there is. This is the Labras lesbian flag. The color purple represents not only femininity, but also Sapphic romance. The inverted black triangle was used as a badge in concentration camps to identify asocial, troublesome, or deviant women such as lesbians, the same way a pink triangle was used for gay men, and both symbols are being reclaimed by the homosexual community. The most prominent aspect of this design, however, is obviously that sweet double-headed axe. The technical term is Labras, and it was adopted in the 1970s as a symbol of the lesbian feminist movement, representing the Hellenistic virtues of strength and self-sufficiency. It's also said to have been a symbol of feminism and matriarchy since ancient times. I don't know why anyone would ever want to move away from such a badass design. Does your new flag have a battle axe? No? Well, you can jolly well saw it off then. Also, it wasn't until I started working on this video that I realized I've never seen a pride flag specifically for gay men. I actually had to go out of my way to Google it to see if one exists, and the most popular design seems to essentially be the pink lesbian flag but in shades of blue. This is just as disappointing as its distaff counterpart, so while we're here I'd like to take a moment to shine a spotlight on Reddit user Dio Ludicolo's awesome Achillean flag design. In the creator's own words, blue is a stereotypical boy's color in the same way that purple is a stereotypical feminine color. The pink triangle has the same origin as the aforementioned black triangle, and the spearhead is a reference to the legendary gay power couple of Achilles and Patroclus, in addition to its phallic symbolism. The one criticism I have of these matching designs is that they lack the horizontal stripes which have come to define LGBT pride flags, but to be fair, the Labras flag predates that trend. In order to bring these awesome twin designs into my full matched set, I only had to make minimal changes. Specifically, I added a white central stripe and adjusted the color palette. At this point, I think it goes without saying that all of my redesigns involved a palette shift, so I'll just leave it implied from here on out. Okay, so in the original script, this is where I segued to the asexual pride flag, but originally I also thought this video was going to be a lot shorter. In fact, plan A was to make only one video pointing out how the new rainbow flag designs don't seem to understand symbolism. Then, plan B was to make a companion video to address the sameness of other LGBT pride flags. The longer I worked on that one, the longer it got, so eventually I decided to break it into 3 parts. That's the story of how one video became 2, and 2 became 4, so come back next week for part 3 of 1 in this month-long series of pride-centric flag shaming. Thanks for watching, happy Pride Month, and have a gay old time.